Hello fellow sim racers and welcome to the 5th instalment of Talking Sims. Today I'm joined by the one and only Mr. Paul Jeffrey, who you probably all know from Race Department. Paul and I are the commentary team for the SRO Esports GT Series, and with the grand final coming up on Saturday the 28th, I thought it would be a great time to sit down and talk through all things sim with my co-commentator and partner in crime. Thank you for joining me, Paul. How are you doing, mate?
Hello, fellow sim racer.
I knew you were going to say.
Haye.
I knew you were going to say that straight away. I think you've set the tone for the whole thing there in the first 4 seconds.
Are you trying to suggest that maybe I'm not that serious?
I think I had an expectation of what this was going to be like, and you haven't disappointed.
Thank you, my
let's
friend.
put it that way. Right. Let's try and get like one serious question out of the way. Just one. That's all I ask. So I guess
off with that then.
A lot of people already know you, man. But for those that don't, maybe you could give the audience a little bit of background about your involvement in motorsport, sim racing, and I guess ultimately race department.
Cool. Okay. Well, hello everybody. Hello, Chris Hayes crowd. Hope you're all right. My name's Paul Jeffrey. I've got the illustrious title of editor-in-chief for racedepartment.com. What that means is I'm a sucker for using all my free time up to do sim racing and motorsport stuff rather than any qualifications or deservingness of that role. And yeah, I've been buddying it with our Mr. Chris, and we've been travelling, globetrotting around Europe at various different seat-free venues for the SRO Esports Series and the Blind Pan GT. And when I'm not doing that, I'm following Worlder, really virtual motorsport, putting some news together, occasionally doing the odd video, and just basking in the glory of our wonderful hobby.
Cool, man. What got you into sim racing to start with?
Not having enough money to go motor racing, really. I'm a lifelong motorsport fan. My dad brought me up on the world of Formula One and that sort of thing. So I clearly remember Mansell waving to the crowd at Canada 91 and flicking the ignition switch and allegedly catching the ignition switch and stumble into a halt at the hairpin. And I've always loved it, but I come without playing the world's smallest violin. I come from a kind of background where it's never been realistic to aspire to go racing and all that kind of thing. So in terms of getting behind wheel, I was quite late in my life when I went out with some mates and discovered karting and hooked completely on the driving aspect of it, as well as the spectating. And then got married, bought a house, had a kid, got all the usual expenditure that comes with life. And sort of realised I wasn't going to go racing. And then one day out at my in-laws' house, we'd been visiting, and they had a computer in the corner at the time, and we didn't have the internet at home. So I was kind of like scouting around on it, just wasting time, really, to save talking to anybody. And found a little write-up about R-Factor 1. And it said, like, oh, we've got every car and every track from every series ever existed. And at the time, I had a bit of an obsession with the Argentinian TC 2000 series through Autosport. I'm like, whoa, there's a car from this in this computer game. And I'm a firm believer at that time that PCs and computers are for nerds. And I don't want things like that. I want beer and girls and all that good stuff. So it was not in my landscape whatsoever. So I did a bit more digging. Found like GTR2, Race 07, GT Legends, the old F1 Legends as well, and a few other bits, and thought, wow, this is amazing. Went out, got myself, found a desk in a skip. Bless you, everyone likes a skip find. Got a Logitech G25 strapped to it, a monitor probably as big as a modern phone, and fell in love. Absolutely fell in love with the idea. Spa with 64 cars, Chris, you'll know this. 64 cars at Spa in GTR2 is, and you don't look back after that.
I like that you got involved at R-Factor 1, and I guess it's probably all been downhill from there. I mean, you came in at the one of the real peaks of sim racing. I think it's taken. I'm already going off notes, and we're going off. I think R-Factor 1 was a real high point. And then we had a little bit of a trough afterwards, and it's taken a while to get back there, I think. So I do think we're back there, though.
Well, we're getting there. I mean, it's been weird to see, because I'm one of these kind of guys that if I get into something, I immerse myself into it, get into it fully, look at its history and its future. I have some friends at work who like Formula One, but they've been into it 3 or 4 years, but they've got no idea who Juan Montoya is. Because they only know what happened from the second interested and nothing that goes before. So I kind of looked at what went before, and I've been deeply involved in it since then. And I've never known anything, sport, gaming, leisure, entertainment, whatever, that regresses. So it's like, oh, wow, GTI 2, massive grids, night and day, weather, pit crews. Remember those?
Yeah.
Actual people. And then they all vanished, and we had less and less, but we've still got turbo lag and chassis flex. So you win on one and you lose on another. But yeah, it's amazing. But like you said, Chris, for me, it's coming back to that peak again now, really, really quickly, I think. And the devs, I often see this at RD when I post an article, and people are very keen, understandably, human nature, to look at what we've not got and bemoan the fact we don't have it. But I mean, we live in a world where people don't sell that many copies, let's be honest. They're not making millions. But they're detailing things like turbo lag, chassis flex, the minute things that 90% of the world won't care about. But for me, I love a blog from Aris in Kunos.
Oh, God,
where
yeah.
it puts that. That's amazing, isn't it? It's just, you look at that, wow, just the stuff, the level of detail. It's a golden period, personally, I think, definitely. And getting better, hopefully.
For sure. You touched on something there, which was about your interest in Formula One from the early 90s. And I think that's going to make a nice clumsy segue into the next thing I want to talk about, which is I want to go through some of the events this year that we've experienced in the SRO Esports series, because I think there's a lot of fun stories there that we need to tell the public that I haven't
Is this got an age rating on it, though? So do we need to keep...
I think there's a really, really strong chance that there may be some colourful anecdotes in the next few minutes. But no, where I was going with that was Monza. The first time I met you, Paul, this year, we met at Heathrow Airport. And within about 90 seconds, you'd brought up Maurizio Gugelmin, I think. And I sort of thought, you know what? I was a bit concerned going into this. I'm going to have to commentate with a guy that I only know through his internet videos. Are we going to get on? Is there going to be a rapport? Is it going to be okay? And I thought at that moment, oh, Jesus, we're just going to be talking about the 1993 Formula One season for the next 24 years, aren't we?
It's been great. It has. You're the only bloke in the world, and I class people in this segment, I'm saying, the people that were actually there at the time still don't know what I'm talking about, but you're the only guy that I can say something obscure to about motorsport. And not only do you know what I'm talking about, you're actually authoritative on the subject, and we can have a back and forth.
I don't know about authoritative, but I just sort of, I remember some of the really shit tier stuff. That's probably the first time I've ever sworn on the channel. I've done badly. You've brought out my bad side, Paul. Apologies to
Chris Haye.
Apologies to people that don't like that kind of thing, but oh well. Now you know the truth. Anyway, Monza was the first event this year. We went and sort of into the unknown, I think, with this series. Kunos, I think, decided or got involved in the project at quite a late date. The game wasn't completed at that stage. They were still on version 0.8, I think, or 0.7 even. So they tied it up with the ACC media press release thing. So there were a bunch of influencers there. And we just sort of turned up in, I think, what you could describe as the most beautiful little building thing in the world. And what did you make of that, Paul?
My overriding memory of Monza was the suspiciously heavy slant towards fish products on the on the food table. Because, like I say, it's first time we'd met. We were. I think it's fair to say we were both absolutely buzzing about the fact that we're at Monza at a race event working, and it was kind of.
This is on video. People can see the hand motions, Paul.
That's okay. It's fine. But yeah, it's just I think we were a bit blown away by it all. And it's just like you said, the venue we were in, absolutely gorgeous. And the kind of place that you don't get into unless you've got some kind of official capacity, which was a real buzz for me because I've been to a ton of races, never abroad, admittedly. But I love the access to the the real side of things that we get by being there and being like in an official capacity.
Well, for those that haven't seen through social media and my videos and stuff, the venue itself, we had one entire glass wall of this building just viewed out onto. I don't mean viewed the pit exit, the pit lane. It was the exit, the pit exit. There's this glass wall. There's 2 feet of tarmac, and then you've got GT3 cars going past. And I rewatched some of the Monza coverage recently of the stream that we did, and there are numerous points during the race where I'm on camera just casually looking around at these GT3 cars going behind.
It's like
highly
when you
professional.
say, don't stare at the sun. Don't stare at the sun, it'll burn your retinas. And you can't resist it because it's just so glorious that it's there. And if we can do that, Chris, if we can do that, and we can also sit next to a Ferrari GT3 car blipping its throttle in garage while trying to do a job, we can do anything. We've got no fear.
It's funny you say that. I think Monza was the quietest of all the places we broadcasted from this year, despite only being about 4 feet away from the cars. But we'll get onto that when we talk about some of the later events. Another override, we should talk about some of the races a little bit. The thing that impressed me most about Monza from the esports perspective was a guy called Kamil Franchek, who totally dominated both his heat and the race. I think we had a situation where everyone sort of gravitated towards the Lamborghini because that's the car they qualified in, and this was version, as I said, 0.7, so like half the cars weren't available. And Kamil bucked the trend, went with the Emil Frey Jag, and was just putting a second a lap on everyone. And we just saw in Nürburgring last weekend in the wet, in the Lexus he took in the end, which was a car no one else could get to work in the wet. He was putting 2 or 3 seconds a lap on the field. That guy's special.
Is the full package. From what I've seen of him, the way he carries himself around the esport arena, the performances that he puts in when he's out on track, the way he just speaks to, he's got a presence about him, I think, without sort of getting too overexcited about him, but he's got a presence in himself and the way he carries it. He looks like a professional, he acts like a professional, but when he gets on track, he's just got, certainly the 2 times that we've seen in race, which is obviously a small amount compared to his entire racing history, he's just got everything on the button. He doesn't look hurried. He doesn't look flustered. I mean, at the last round in Germany, he was harrying the car in front, Pavlovsky, so long, but he knew his place. There's no dive bombs. There were no stupid moves. There are a few times where he kind of got alongside, and in different circumstances, other drivers may have just rolled the dice. But he's professional enough to know that not only does he back out of that incident, but he also lines himself up to see if he can make use of a faster exit. In T1 in particular, there are a few times his front wheel will level with the back wheel of the car in front. He backed out of it, went wide, and then tried to get a switchback and get a run in a safer part of the track. And for me, I mean, we've talked about this, Chris, before with Steve, haven't we? And we've had a few articles up about the subject as well. A lot of sim racers or e-sporters or whatever you want to call it often apply a set of rules in e-sport and sim racing that aren't the same as the real world. So there's no there's no consequence realistically in terms of injury or damage. So sometimes you see some things happening when you're doing public lobbies or club races or whatever, where people put the cars in a position that they wouldn't do on a racetrack. And what I liked about Kamil was he seemed to have that kind of racer's instinct that you can see that something's probably not going to pan out too well. Like the opposite of Max Verstappen, you can see something's not going to pan out too well. So he came out of it and looked for a more sensible opportunity. And I respect that hugely because I'm a big fan of the saying that it's not the fastest person that wins the race, it's the person who makes the fewest mistakes. And he feels to me like one of those kind of drivers. So big future, I think, for that chap.
Yeah, no, definitely. I wasn't expecting such a thorough answer there, Paul. I thought you were going to say, yeah, it was good. And leave it at that. The other thing from Monza, I mean, there are a couple of little bits from Monza that we should probably mention. It's my first time meeting Josh Martin, who is, I'm recording this show with him on Friday. We're going to talk about some of the business of putting on live events in sim racing, both sort of esports and commercial stuff. He's got some interesting insight into that. Was a racer himself, has been pretty entertaining the entire time we've been involved.
Yeah.
But I think the lasting memories of Monza for me relate to the town of Bergamo, and a little pizza shop that we discovered. Which do you think is this? Are we able to tell this story sensibly without getting my channel blacklisted?
That could be one of the most challenging things of the week to achieve that, but it was very much not an authentic Italian pizza restaurant. It was not, as one would describe, the most romantic of settings for us to continue our journey.
Steve tried his best on the romance side,
serenading random people with Disney songs, but there was the distinct aroma of leaking gas in the area, which may have made things so much more funny than in reality they actually were. And there were also a den of iniquity next door, which was interesting. So a venue where single gentlemen may go and enjoy the pleasure of other people's company for on a rate by the 30 or the 60 minutes, which was interesting and took us a while to work out what that was.
There was a minor translation issue because of the Chinese characters involved. Something about Tuna Palace.
Tuna Palace, yes.
Tuna Palace.
Where you two, for just €30, can have a 25-minute sensitive tuna rub, which, to be fair, that kind of aroused our suspicion a little bit that maybe this is not some kind of fish eatery. Yeah,
I think steering the conversation in a slightly more wholesome direction, I did manage to pick up a copy of Pizzeria Pasta magazine from this eatery, which I've treasured. And I thought I would I'll just keep hold of that for now. I think
that's got to go in a frame, Chris. That's got to go in a frame in the man cave. That's got legend.
I'm going to frame every single page individually.
Absolutely.
Autograph
it. That can be Chris Haye merch. Autograph it, and you can send it out because you've got like 50 pages of wholesome Italian pizza and pasta news with the Chris Haye signature on.
I'm not sure the in-joke would really stretch that far. And given that we are on the subject of in-jokes, let's move on before any more of that story of that particular evening in that pizza parlor unveils itself. Paul Ricard was up next, which I think it's fair to say was a bit of an eye-opener for both you and I. I've said it on this channel before, and you said it on your write-up, but we both had to really eat humble pie on that one, didn't we? I think we both expected it to be rubbish, and, well, what did you think of it, Paul?
Surprise of the season, without any shadow of a doubt. I had preconceived ideas going into Paul Ricard, so I looked at the schedule. Monza, obviously, absolutely buzzing. It's a legendary circuit, so much history. Spa, enough said. Nürburgring, again, it's got the big track on it. It's just a beautiful venue. I've been before, really like it. And Barcelona, again, Barcelona's a beautiful city. But Paul Ricard, I weren't really excited about. I think it's always felt like a bit of a boring track to me. I don't like the blue striping that they've done. It's lost its character. But yeah, blown away. I mean, the weather were glorious. The track is basically put in the middle of a postcard on the top of a mountain. It's just the most visually amazing place in the world. And then it's just a party atmosphere. I mean, Steve, at one stage, we'd finished our work for the day. We'd had a drink. We'd been to a party on a rooftop in a massive multi-million pound racetrack. And Steve's like, "Oh, this is awesome. It's just like a house party." I'm like, what house party do you ever go to? I've been to a few and they're nothing like this. But yes, Chris, honestly, I blew me away. The on the rooftop of the pit building, you've got the music, the cocktails. I've seen your video where you've done the atmospherics for it. So you've got all that going off. One side here, you've got a beautiful overview of the paddock, and I love a racing paddock when everything's finished and people are working. And I love that Ted Kravitz time sort of atmosphere. And then to the side, you've got a really good view of some really wicked GT3 cars racing in night time. And you've got a beer in your hand. I mean, talk about living dream. What a place.
Yeah, it's
no
nice.
Chairs, though.
No, well, that is on my list of discussion points for Paul Ricard is the lack of chairs. Maybe we'll circle back to that. But it was nice to get onto the podium as well. right at the end. There were so many amazing things that happened, but for me, Bentley win, podium, Chris Harris won in the McLaren as well. So that was, that was a bit special. I know we're in the grounds of talking a bit just insular here and just talking about how great that weekend was. But
we've had a wonderful weekend. No.
Sorry about that, guys. Yeah. If it's coming across a bit like that, Paul will change.
Great way to win viewers there, Chris. Look what we've done. Look what we.
Yeah, bad times, but
all for a good cause.
All for a good cause, and the balance. I mean, Paul Ricard was excellent, but not if you wanted to sit down.
No, there was. I mean, just to put some context on this, it was warmer than the face of the sun. It was an incredibly. South of France is like basically gorgeous all time. So it was another perfect clear blue sky weekend, like really beautiful. And when you're doing the job that Chris and I've been doing, so you're the commentary, doing some pieces to camera, and then just generally, because the series was in its infancy at that point, there's still some scheduling or some formatting things that you could alter on the fly a little bit. So it's not just rock up, do your job, get off again. There's a lot of engagement, sort of like talking to Kevin from Kunos about what we can and can't achieve, and the guys like Alessio, Davide, and a few others, and the drivers, of course, and all that good stuff. So you're on your feet, Chris, aren't you, all the time? You're thinking, you're on your tiptoes all the time, thinking, engaging. And then obviously, for Chris and I, it's like a basically second broadcast, for me certainly, second broadcast ever. So there's a lot of like
certainly
tension.
In that sort of situation, yeah.
Yes, there's a lot of tension, and there's a lot of you want to do a good job and a professional job. You see the work and the energy and the effort that's gone into getting you to the point where you're in front of that camera, and that's, if you let yourself think about it, that's quite a big pressure, because basically all that goodness can come down to nothing if you freeze or you make a mistake or something goes belly up.
See, I wish you hadn't said any of this, because I haven't had any of these thoughts. I haven't thought about any of that.
Think about this for Barcelona. Make no mistakes, it's the final. But yeah, it's just, there's all that. And even if it's subconscious, that's quite a wearing experience. But the bit you don't see on the camera is the downtime periods. There's a lot of where you're not needed, but it's 4,000 degrees outside, so you don't want to sweat because you're going to be on screen soon. And yeah, not having a seat or a cost-effective beverage option is
but there were no seats like anywhere at that venue. There's one little drink stand. Well, there were two, but one was for VIPs only. There's like one little shack selling €8 Cokes with like 6 seats outside of it, and that's the entire seating for the VIP area and the paddock area and everything else. And
there was Secret Sofa. We found Secret Sofa, which is like a 3-man chase lounge type seat thing. Oh, we were absolutely cock-a-hoop. It was close enough to where we were that we could get to it. It was neat loose, so you've got everything a man needs to enjoy your downtime. And then in the middle of a racetrack in a paddock, it just vanished. It just literally like, oh, come on, let's go and sit down. What? It's there's one point of egress, and that's through the gaming park. And no one saw it. Nobody went with it on the head and walked past us. It just ceased to exist. It was, I don't think it was real. I think we'd got sunstroke. I think we just imagined it was there. But yeah, so comment in the comment section down below if you can explain why a 3-person settee would just vanish into thin air at a racetrack.
Or
we don't
where
know.
all of the chairs in the south of France are, because they must have some.
Stefan Rattel somewhere sat basking in the glory of 15,000 chairs. This is my empire.
I just like the idea that he flies out from the racetrack on his helicopter to his warehouse full of chairs.
That's right. That's what it's going to be next season when Blind Pan goes. It's going to be the look at all my chairs GT3 series.
I look forward to the DLC pack from Kunos.
Yeah,
Speaking of DLC, I tell you what, we can do our friends at Kunos a bit of a thing here, because they've just announced the Intercontinental GT DLC pack, which will be coming sometime. Oh man, I wish we knew some details, because we could give some real insight here, but the only insight I can give is what's in the press release. We've known about it for a little while, and I think everyone sort of expected that it was going to come, because how could you not have that engine, those cars, and a license that really hints that you're going to go and throw Suzuka and Bathurst and Kyalami and Laguna Seca as well. People haven't been talking about Laguna Seca, but that's worth having as well.
They're brilliant tracks. It's interesting because, like you say, we've had some idea for a little while now, but a lot of noise in the community was this is going to be Blackpan GT3 only, and I think the giveaway's been the amount of noise around the SRO aspect of it. So it's really exciting to see the first indication that it's going to be more than just the 2018 and 2019 Blackpan series, that actually it could potentially start incorporating more stuff. And Intercontinental GT Challenges, cars are broadly the same, but the tracks, man, Kyalami now's been resurfaced as well. It's been significantly upgraded, so really stoked about that one. Kyalami's a great underrated little racetrack. So, and Suzuka in laser scan with good physics and all the study bits that come with it. Super happy about that.
Yeah, I think outside of iRacing, Suzuka's been a bit of a miss in a lot of racing sims over the last decade at least. So it's really nice to see it done justice. I mean, again, iRacing has a good laser scan of it, but that's about it. So for those of us that like racing against the AI or just aren't into the iRacing thing, let's have at it.
Just the thing as well, you've got the weather and the time of day as well. So the idea is Suzuka with a big grid of cars at night time in rain. Oh, that's going to be absolutely. Bring some spare trousers because you're going to need them. It's going to be. I can't wait for that. But I like them all. I mean, I don't like Bathurst, funnily enough, but I respect it. But I just don't like it. But so I'm looking forward to it to see what it's like. But Suzuka for me is one of my favourite tracks in the world.
I'm kind of with. Go on.
Oh, no.
I was going to say I'm kind of with you about Bathurst, Mount Panorama. The middle section of the lap is fantastic. It's utterly breathtakingly brilliant. But then you got the final sector, which is the whacking great long straight where you've eventually got a break, which in a GT3 car isn't much. Then you got a couple of left and right hand 90-degree corners that no one really cares about them on any race circuit. Then you've got another 45-mile long straight, and then you get back to sector 2 again. That sector 2 is enough to put it. I mean, it's still in my probably top 10 tracks in the world. But that's just because of the strength of sector 2 versus the weakness of like 1 and 3,
It's awesomeness with Mickey Mouse-ness bolted onto it to get to it, isn't it? And that's what's always bugged me. It's just
I hope there aren't any Australians that listen to this channel, because they're not going to like this, are they?
Are you suggesting that all Australians are excessively impressed with Mount Panorama and have some kind of reputation against it? Is that what you're saying, Chris? Pray tell.
I'm saying that I think all sim racers do, so I'm going to get in trouble for this opinion anyway. You're not. You're a guest here. They'll be nice to you, but
no, they won't. They'll come and find me in the comment section or ID and start attacking. It's all good stuff. No, I do like it though. Jokes aside, I like Bathurst. I just don't love it the way some people do. But then again, put me in a V8 supercar and send me on my way, and I'm sure I'll find a special place in my heart for it. But Chris,
on that, go on.
Oh, we've done it again on the same topic. Sorry, man. My fault.
Your turn.
Because they've got the Intercontinental GT Challenge series, do you think we should push in Barcelona to do the official eSport series of it and go fly over to Suzuka for 3 days?
I think that's a really, really strong plan, Paul.
I like it.
I mean, you'd also have to do California and South Africa, and I've forgotten what the fourth one is. It's my mind's blanked. We were talking about it a minute ago, but my mind is completely blanked.
Suzuka, Bathurst, Laguna, Kyalami.
That's 4. Yeah, I just can't count.
Yeah, 4. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we did that on there. I'm going to leave that in because I don't believe in editing unless I say something really incriminating. So just not being able to count to 4 is fine. What I was going to say, Paul, is that it's funny you say, "Oh, put me in a V8 supercar and I'll probably find something special about it." Something you said before, as probably most people know, that both Paul and I got a chance to do some time on the Nordschleifer in a Golf R a couple of weeks ago, which was all we've talked about since. We've become incredibly boring, single-topic human beings. But what's really interesting is that just about a week before that, I can't remember if it was you or Bram, and for those that don't know, Bram's owner, head honcho at RD, one or other of you, and I think it was you, was saying, "Oh, I'm not sure how much I'll really enjoy driving that." We had a really good time having a taxi lap, and I think you're just driving it yourself, you won't be able to get that sort of speed and attack out of it, and I'm not sure if it'll be a really great feeling. Was that you?
Yeah,
it
was me. Yeah,
changed your mind somewhat, didn't you?
Mahoosively, yeah. I got that one so far wrong. It's unbelievable. Yeah, it's. I mean, don't get me wrong. With the best will in the world, we're going to get nowhere near the limit of the taxi lap in 2017. Nowhere near it. And I think they've both got. That's the way to put it. They've both got merit. Doing both is going to be a barnstorming example. But dude, just getting in that car and putting your foot down and going, oh God, that still tickles my fancy even now. I really loved it.
Did you? We haven't had a chance to speak about this specific aspect, but I came away from that thinking, I'm so glad we did that with an instructor. I sort of thought about it afterwards, and there's a nice thing about doing it on your own and being able to find your own pace and what have you, but having an instructor there, and particularly the guy that was in the car with you, because I jumped in the back, so I'd had a flavour of a few instructors, and the guy you had, whose name escapes me right now, was Costas, was just so really on it with his instructions. I mean, he was pushing you hard right from the get-go as well, and you didn't have to worry about. I mean, you just didn't have to think about things like, oh, okay, there's traffic coming off in the distance, and what if you miss the turn-in marker here, because Lord knows it's nothing like being on the simulator. I mean, it's weird because you recognise everything. Actually, you had a slightly different opinion of that to me, but I recognised everything. I knew where I was, and I sort of felt I could concentrate on the lines, and I had a reasonable idea, other than where my own sort of human instincts were telling me to do other things. But other than that, it's nothing like The Sims. So
it will. I agree wholeheartedly with you that having an instructor was epic. It was great to have somebody, because there's a lot of parts of the track where you can't see what's coming up, and like the bits in a sim, for example, are easy flat. Obviously, you tend to be doing it in racing cars where this is a Golf R that we're driving, and you just don't know, is it easy flat, or do you need to breathe off the throttle a little bit? And if you don't breathe off and it's not flat, that's 26 grand's worth of insurance excess that I've just not got. So it's
was it
nice
only 26? Oh, right, that's not too bad.
Yeah, do it twice, be right. We all kind of got in car afterwards and went, that's the most reckless thing we've ever done. Quick fall. Has anybody got 26 grand spare if they crash car? Not one hand was raised. None of us had that money. And the guy saying to me, he's like, no, aim for the barrier and then turn in, stay wide. And it's like, yeah, dude, I ain't got no money. I'm going tight. I don't care if it's slower, because that barrier is 3 foot away from me, and I'm doing about 120 at the moment. So you're all right. I'll have an early apex.
But that's the stupid thing. I think you're probably more likely to crash if you have an earlier apex. I think, another thing I thought about afterwards in the calm of the well, that was the other thing. We had, a bunch of us did it, so we had a good hour and a half stood around at RSR, sort of debriefing ourselves, and there was a lot of quite sage, timely thoughts that came about amongst the group, which might have been because they gave us all a beer at the end as well, which was really nice. I think I came to
experience.
No, I think. To start with, I thought that was good customer service, but then I came to the conclusion, actually, they're giving you a beer because it's getting towards the end of the day, and if you have a beer, then you can't get back in the car. That's their way of sending you on your way, which I thought was...
which is a great way to do, which is so much better than, right, cheers, boys, get gone. It's like, have a beer, for sure. Now go. But they were great, weren't they, though? The whole RSR experience, the whole, they've got, for anybody who's not been, they've got their own kind of garage and offices and briefing lounge and stuff that's set in a really nice, just at the foot of the castle, so you can see that in the background. You can walk probably, I don't know, 200 yards down the field, and then you're at the bridge at the start of the lap. So a bit of a spectating view that we didn't get a chance to do this year. But it's just the whole experience of you feel like you're doing something a little bit special. And then, I don't know about you, Chris, but I've not driven left-hand drive before. So
No.
driving on the track I was happy with, but driving to the track was hair-raising. It's like, this is all the wrong way round.
I had a look back at when I was looking at my lap. I realised that I was getting much closer to the lines on one side of the car than on the other. You know, there's an extra sort of 12 inches or so on the left-hand side of the track than there was on the right. Which again, we used to driving right-hand drive, so that is what it is. Anyway, we've gone off topic there, which is probably quite likely. So I think we covered pretty much everything we can about Paul Ricard, and then the Nordschleife, which is situated right in the middle of the south of France, as everyone knows. Let's talk about Spa. Bit of an interesting weekend. It was 40 degrees. It was 40 It was 40 degrees driving across France to get there, and then by the end of the weekend, it was 17 degrees and raining sideways. I feel like we sort of got the most out of the weather at Spa.
I think I'm sure it was you that said it when we were there. I would have been annoyed if we'd have gone to Spa and it had been dry, because that's not the Spa experience. So it was cool to get the best of both worlds, I think, weren't it? It
was quite nice that I think the race was red flagged for about 4 hours during the night, which just happened to coincide with the bit of time we went home and got some sleep at the hotel. So it was nice of them
really well, actually. Yeah,
it did. They catered well for us. So the esports park was up on the roof of the F1 pit lane. Obviously, they use both pit lanes at Spa and pretty much any other bit of room they can get to cram some GT cars into. Wow, I mean, if you ever go to the 24 Hours of Spa, guys, and you should, because it's just ridiculous, pay for a paddock pass. I think it was about €60. It's quite expensive, but equally, getting in and amongst all of that was just, it's great. I mean, I enjoy being in a paddock anywhere, but Spa, 75 cars, wasn't it? Or 73 cars this year, 73 teams, plus all the Super Trofeo and the Porsche Cup stuff with the new 935 GT2 car. And there was plenty to see. I would definitely advise anyone that can stretch the extra bit to get a paddock pass should do so. Man, I'm shilling for people tonight. Pimping the.
This is a paid broadcast. This one, it's sponsored. Sell out, sell out.
I was trying to sell Kunos DLC, some ring rides with RSR, and now paddock passes for SRO. I think on balance, SRO probably owes me more money than I owe SRO. So
nothing if not diverse. That's all good stuff. But I must admit though, I cannot agree more with the whole get a paddock pass if you can thing. Because what blew me away, Chris, like an observation about that was, it's like a little village inside the paddock. I mean, I've been at paddocks predominantly in British circuits. So like Donington's my local and my favourite. And when you say paddock, it is a cafe, some pit buildings, and a whole expanse of tarmac. But in Spa, it was split on 3 or 4 different levels. There was some really awesome, old school, like very stereotypical Belgian architecture even for the area. Beautiful. It were attractive in its own right, weren't it? Not to mention the fact that every now and again you had to step aside for a Honda NSX GT3 to wheel its way past you. That's no bad thing. But it was a really gorgeous place and a really exciting place to be part of. And it's massive, but every square inch is crammed full of transporters, busy people. And it's just, I was quite satisfied to not walk around the track and just soak up the paddock. Amazing place, amazing feeling. And for 24 hours, really, man, you need it, don't you, to try and break it up a little bit.
Yeah, I quite liked, given the weekend it was, having access to an air-conditioned bar as well for the odd little sit down. That was quite enjoyable.
Well, I've still got a beer token in my wallet. So for €1.50, which is a euro saving, you too can have a drinks code token. So just hit me up, anybody who wants it, and it's €1.50 plus P&P, and you too can have a beverage. I'm Paul Jeffrey of Race Department.
At the
There you go, let me
2019
know.
24 Hours of Spa, yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm assuming it's year round, so I'm assuming that will get you a fine beverage at any grade B or grade A racing event at Spa-Francorchamps.
Well,
If
there's
not,
only
I'll
one way to
save it for
find out.
next year and hope and pray we get into the season.
So yeah, as I was saying, we were up on the top of the F1 pit building, which doesn't have sides, I think would probably be the best way to describe it, which when there's nothing running is fantastic. You've got this gorgeous view of Eau Rouge and Raidillon on one side. You look over to the other side and you've got the run up the hill through Blanchimont to the bus stop chicane. I mean, if you're a racing fan, it's a fantastic place to be. If you're a broadcaster, it was challenging, I think would be fair to say, Paul.
I've learnt lip reading on the fly, because if anybody watches our broadcast of the race and wonders why we kind of like Chris asks a question and I give him a completely and utterly random answer, it's because I've got no idea what he said. It's just, Chris, how you doing? Okay. Yeah, really loud, like louder than, because of how it works. As you say, there's no sides. It's a mostly metal corrugated sheet building. The sound just comes in, ping, ping, pings around, and then ping, ping, pings around some more. It doesn't go anywhere, so it just stays. And yeah, it just imagine getting like a 1968 Ford Mustang or something, going into a tunnel with a brick wall at the end and a tunnel, and then revving it up, and then bringing 4,000 other 1968 Mustangs and revving them up, and then trying to have a conversation with somebody 12 feet away. That's what it was like. But
Well,
it was
the problem. You're right, because under racing conditions, it was just moderately deafening. But it was during the full course yellow periods when you'd have 70 plus GT3 cars going past, plus the safety car, on the pit limiter or on the speed limiter, whatever code 60 they were at or whatever. And it takes about 2.5 minutes for 70 plus GT3 cars to go past at that speed. And they're just as loud on the limiter as they are. And they just sound more obnoxious as well. So it's best of both worlds. So yeah, no, that was a challenge, but we got through it.
To be honest,
I was going to say, as a reward for that,
too much to say.
we do. Yeah, I'm just going to keep talking. Otherwise, I'll set you off on a question and I won't get a word in edgeways for 10 minutes. I know how this
We're so
works.
much better at commentating together than we are talking together.
That's
Anyway, carry on.
That's accurate. Yeah, I now can't remember what I was going to say. It's gone.
A reward for the loud noise.
Oh, we were rewarded by getting our first opportunity to commentate on some real world live motorsport. But in what is a beautiful metaphor for our year, I think, Paul, we got the opportunity, but every time they cut to the footage for us to commentate on, it was under full course yellow.
That was so unlucky. We were buzzing, weren't we? We're like bump fists and everything. It's, oh man, this is a dream come true. We're both Blank Pan GT Series fans. It's like, I can't believe this. This is like, how amazing. Oh, we're gonna cut to race. Yeah, I don't know what happened up to this point. All I know is the cars are driving really slowly. And don't really know what running order is either. So
we opined on some barrier repairs for about 5 minutes. That was
that's true. That can go in the CV that we have. Yeah. We have broadcast to thousands of people, construction workers, repairing a sheet of metal. Yay! Yeah, that didn't quite pan out like we hoped it would, but it was still cool. It was still cool to do it.
No, definitely. I still count it. It's definitely going in my show reel. I mean, I'm not showing the show reel to anyone, so it doesn't really matter. It's just for me. Something else that was quite fun, actually, and I think you remarked at the time, it's a shame we couldn't film it, is we got sat down. We got to sit down with a beer with both Aris and JF from Sector 3. While they were talking sim physics and just the sim racing world of sim racing in general, and yeah, man, that was a fun conversation to be a part of, and I want to get those two in a room with a camera on them and hope they'll be as sort of candid, because they're both great personalities. I mean, yeah, that's clearly never going to happen. In fact, I don't think even Aris will come on here and talk to me. I'm saying that publicly to get people to pressure him, because he needs to. He needs to. Anyway, no, just hearing two people so heavily involved in sim racing physics discuss some of the finer points of it was pretty enlightening, I thought. And now I realise I've gone into that. There's not too much I think we can say about that.
Well, I mean, for me, it's just kind of, we both, I'm sure you do it, I know I certainly do, have to kind of check yourself after a while and just sort of appreciate the position that we're in. We're lucky enough to be in, because we both love sim racing, and you kind of become a little bit blasé about the fact that you can speak to the Aris's, JFs, Marcos, or basically anybody, pretty much, that's anybody in sim racing. You can get in touch with them quite quickly, have a conversation, shoot them a question, meet them, talk to them, share a beer, share a laugh. And we get used to it because we've done it for so long that it's not a biggie. But I can still remember my very first interview was with JF, actually, funnily enough, Sector 3 a few years ago. And you think, up to the point of doing what I do now, and you, Chris, do what you do now, these guys are like the Toto Wolff and Frank Williams of the world. Do you know what I mean? They're the people that make the stuff happen, that we spend thousands of pounds on kit and thousands of hours to maximise and enjoy. And it's always a pleasure to talk to them. But when you see, like you said, those two people together, that it's a bit of a moment where if you're not involved as heavily as we are, it's kind of like a bit of like, whoa, that's a legendary moment. I mean, we had it last year, Sim Racing Expo. We did the dev dinner, and we had Marcel, who's an amazing guy. Marcel Offermans from 397. Chris Elliott from 397. Marco Davide from Kunos. Renato, another top guy from Riser Studios for Auto Blister. I just see them all together, and the camaraderie and the fact that they just, it doesn't sound like they will be when you look at them, when you put them on a pedestal as these legendary devs. They're just exactly the same as us. They're just guys that happen to be a bit more techie than we are and happen to have the resource behind them to be able to form a company. But for the most part, they're not setting up these studios to shift units. They're setting up these studios because they want a really, really good sim. And
all of those guys you mentioned in particular are massive, and I don't think anyone will be offended by this, but massive racing nerds. Not one of those guys is anything other than exactly as passionate as you or I, Paul, or 99.9% of the audience watching this. So that I mean, I think that getting into this side of things, the more sort of journalistic side of things, that's one of the things that's been most nice actually about getting to spend more time with a lot of these devs, is realizing just how pure their sort of reasons for doing this are. I can't speak for some other sims, but the ones we've spoken about and the people you've spoken about there in particular, when I've met them, they don't care about anything other than sim racing. I'm sure they have outside pursuits and families and stuff, but when they're in a room with a sim racer, they're never going to mention any of them.
That is like, and the thing is, I mean, I shall not name names, but I spoke to our dev once, and they were telling me about this awesome new thing they're developing. Honestly, it's come out now, so it's not a secret thing. I cannot remember at all what it was, but it was something really, really nerdy that were like, I really don't know what it were, which is a shame because it kind of spoils the whole story. But they were doing something that's like this super, super realistic bit of physics modeling type thing. And I said, like, well, why are you doing that for? Because most people won't appreciate it or even know it's there, and it's not going to drive any sales. No one's going to buy the sim because they've got it. And they just looked at me and went, well, because it makes it more realistic. Why else would we do it? And that's what I love. They're not bolting some shiny, happy, sparkly type thing to it in the expectation that if we spend X amount of money doing this, we'll receive Y amount of money, income or something. They just do it because, well, if somebody buys it, great. But if they don't, it's the most realistic we can make it. And that goes back to the beginning of this broadcast where we were saying about a golden period. It really is, because you've got people that, I mean, I'm sure Renato Simeone from Riser Studios does not know how to sell something because he gives it all away. He does loads of stuff and never charges for it.
It's funny you say that, Paul, because that's exactly what I was, because not specifically about Renato, but so none of these guys are really in it to turn a profit.
No.
And you can tell that from some of the business decisions. You know,
Yeah, you can actually,
the amount they do give away for free, and to the point where I think it actually sometimes becomes expected. I had a couple of guys talking in the comments on Twitter, and someone on my Discord mentioning that, oh, it's a shame that the new DLC for ACC isn't going to be free. I'm like, do you have any idea how much it costs to license that stuff, let alone actually develop all the content for it? It's like, no way, no. But that's the problem. So many of these companies are giving so much stuff away for free that I guess people sort of expect it a little bit. I mean, I have no idea how any of the devs we've been talking about here make any money whatsoever.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and it comes through as passion projects. They are just, I mean, I hope they make money, but they're definitely not buying helicopters and planes.
No,
They probably, to be fair, you could probably make more money than most of devs do with a semi-decent middle management job in an office. It's not fortunes, but they're doing something they absolutely adore. They're doing something they believe in, something that brings pleasure to them. They can scrape by and make enough money to pay the bills and have some spends and share it with the world. And I think it upsets me sometimes when I see the barrages of criticism some people give for some of these things develop when the sim doesn't come out release day absolutely pucker, but then they develop it for the next 5 years and people kind of forget that AC were a train wreck. AC1
exactly, yeah.
And people hold it up on a pedestal now as something amazing. They go, well, GTR 2 came out, it only had 2 patches. The tech is so different, the detail and level is so different. I don't want, personally, here's some controversy for you. Clickbait, I don't want a sim to come out today and it be finished and perfect, and I've got what I've got, and I play with it, and I don't want to play it anymore. I love the fact that R Factor 2 was something once upon a time, and it's something completely different now. And then I see the change, I get excited. I read what they've done and the direction of travel they've taken. Sometimes I agree, sometimes I disagree with it. But how fundamentally something can improve. GameStop Car is the best one. GameStop Car was solid in its own right. Turned into GameStop Car Extreme, solid again. Turned into Automobilista 2, which they didn't charge for, but people still had issue that they sell in the same game 3 times. But they only charge for it once, so they're just rebranding it. But AMS, now it's pretty much finished, barring a hotfix, is a completely different kettle of fish. It's so much deeper. Yeah. And that's not just content. Content I don't care about. It's just the depth of the physics, and they've turned R Factor 1. Basically, there's marbles, there's live track to some sort of degree. They've got the turbo lag and modelling. I think Chassis Flex, is it, Chris? I think, is it now?
I think so, yeah.
Tons of stuff that 90% of people don't care about, and the brake temperatures and brake fade. And I love this. The allocation of tyre sets, which is something people so overlook all the time. They've even got, I remember reading once that on some of the tracks, they've got like aircraft and whatnot flying over. And it's the proper flight path for that time of day. So that's flying the right way. I love tackle like that. That's my bag, big time.
I quite enjoyed the first time I drove the Donington Park mod for Assetto Corsa, having the 737 or whatever flying out of the old Midlands Airport there. I think that's that was a moment, and it comes from the right place. So it's certainly not on the right flight pattern. That it's not. I mean, that's, I guess, why a mod for Assetto Corsa is never going to be at riser level, because it's not got that attention to detail in the flight. But maybe it does.
Detail I love.
Maybe I've never noticed it. Maybe it does.
It could do. I mean, I've been a while since I've been on Bruns Donington, but it does. I mean, I know Donington really, really well. They do look pretty reasonable, the direction that they're going and stuff. So maybe it does. But like with AMS, they have stuff like that. They have things like you can see service vehicles on the access road on some of the tracks. So is it, what's the one that came to R Factor 2? Was it Cascavel? Was that one room, or Campo Grande? I can't remember.
Yeah, I know the one you're talking about.
Rise Pike. And I was coming into T1, the left-hander, and I crashed. So what's that? And there's a service vehicle driving down the access road. I mean, that's the stuff that's not going to sell a single copy more. It's not going to sell the DLC. But that took some time and effort and some brain power to make that happen. because it just adds immersion and really. I know that's a visual immersion, which is different to what we were talking about with physics and whatnot. But the point is, the point remains the same. They go to that extra length to bring something awesome to stuff we love with absolutely no expectation of having a financial payoff for it. And actually, I didn't even pay for that DLC because I backed them years ago. I get everything for nothing, even stuff I didn't actually expect to get. So brings it around quite nicely, that, doesn't it?
But yeah, it's funny you should mention that you like the fact that quite a lot of these sims, I think, R Factor is a good example, so is AMS, but also Race Room and Assetto Corsa as well, with the way things are developed through the game and then the mod community, that they are an evolving process. Not only, I mean, I've got two perspectives on this. One, just as a player, I like the fact that something new comes along and they've changed the way the tire model works, or they've changed the way that the gearbox modeling works, or whatever. That gives me another reason to go and reevaluate it and replay perhaps the same content that may have been getting stale through completely new eyes. And I also have that as a content creator as well. So I struggle to use the word journalist because I think it's a bit ideas above my station, but I also have certainly the ability to go and look at it from that perspective as well. So like with Assetto Corsa, for example, just they developed that game for 4 years and then said, well, we've done what we can do with it, let's move on and make something else. But then the mod community was just like, okay, well, let's see how far we can take this. And Assetto Corsa in 2019 is not what Assetto Corsa was in late 2017, was it, when they released Laguna Seca and said, right, that's it for now, boys, we're going to go and work on something else. And that game was nothing like the original release version, as you alluded earlier. So I totally agree with you, Paul. You said it was going to be a controversial point of view. I also don't want a sim developer to release a finished product. Half finished stuff with lots of ideas still left in the notebook that they haven't quite got around to implementing in the way they want is good for me.
And it's exciting because it continues to push the boundaries of what's possible. Because, like I say, I dare say some of the things that have happened with AC1 in terms of what the devs have done probably weren't even on the radar in 2013 when it came out, because tech's moved forward, or understanding and your workflows have improved and all that jazz. So essentially, when the finished product for AC1 finishes, that becomes the gold standard of the minimum the next sim should be expected to deliver. And then that next sim, which will be AMS2 probably, in terms of like for like, will probably have the vast majority what AC1 had as standard. And then the next 3-year cycle, they'll grow into something completely new and different, and that'll become the new standard. So by 2026, 2027, when you've got AC3 or 4 or whatever, or AMS3, we'll have moved on so much more than, let's compare it to the FIFA series, where it's broadly the same thing in new clothes and a couple of little superficial things. So that's what I love about it, that we're day in, day out, getting closer and closer to the sort of the panacea of what it wants to be, the ultimate it can be at technology levels that we live at today. But then in 5 years' time, when the physics have improved, the tech will have improved as well, and we'll have even shinier, more realistic graphics, VR headsets that you can see more than 5 feet in front of you, etc., etc.
Yeah,
steering wheels even more expensive and powerful.
I hope so. A couple of little points to pick up there. I went down to the Robo Race factory in Banbury on Monday and had a bit of a tour around that, which was nice. Get to have a look at some cars. Two things. This wasn't what I was going to bring up to start with.
Cars,
yeah. Well, what
autonomous vehicles?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, they call it RoboCar. So it's a car. It's definitely a car. Yeah. Well, and the DevBot one that a human being can drive, which they do for sort of optimization and testing and feedback and stuff's based on a LMP3 chassis. So that's definitely a car. Anyway, the point I was going to make is there are a bunch of different robotic arms there, proper industrial, chop you in half kind of car assembly type robotic arms. And it was just like watching a hall of fame of different direct drive wheel motors all hanging off of the side of this. There's the one I got for my SimuCube. There's for the the Simu Cube, and there's the Midge motors on some of them, and I just thought, oh, I'm home.
Yeah, nice. How the two worlds collide.
But they were using R-Factor Pro in their sim, which was nice. So it's nice to see.
Drive?
And that way it's not on.
Drive on that?
No, they were using. It was being used remotely from. They've got several bases around, so I got to watch someone else drive it. But yeah, it would have been interesting to see. I got some sort of footage of the guy talking about the sim and how they use it and how they've integrated LiDAR in the sim itself. Yeah, that's quite interesting. They've developed their own plugin to put LiDAR on the car within the sim, so the car can visualize itself within the sim and do object detection and all of that. Which I thought, oh yeah, there's some good sim racing implications, isn't it? You know.
Yeah. Skynet just gets closer and closer every day, doesn't it? It's scary what you can do nowadays, man. Seriously, it's just mind-blowing.
So
this conversation 5 years ago.
Yeah, I know. We've gone so far off the beaten track, but that's good. That's what I wanted from this, because I knew that...
Chris, you've known me since April. Why did you even bother putting an agenda together? You know it's not going to happen, man.
There's no agenda. I just wanted... what I thought I'd do is we'd loosely talk through the SRO Esports series and the events, and that would just be a nice jumping off point for stories, and it's worked beautifully. We haven't even had to talk about the hotel we were at in Belgium, where there wasn't any power when we turned up. When Steve turned up at 1 o'clock in the morning, we had to... Apparently there's no one... I've not had this, and maybe people can help out in the comments. Is it common for hotels in Europe not to be staffed at night? Sorry, in continental Europe, I should say. This hotel, yeah, there are no staff on site, so we have to call someone to get checked in, and they may have had a drink or two before they turned up, and they were not best pleased. Let's not get into that, because I don't think we can tell the story the way it unfolded. So maybe Paul.
It wasn't full of flowers and butterflies. Let's put it that way. It wasn't a wonderful scene from a child's storybook of how happy she was to accommodate our requests.
I left with the impression that we were perhaps not very welcome at the hotel.
Yeah, I definitely read an undertone of that from what was said and happened, without a doubt. I
may have left a review that used the words Basil faulty, so which I thought was not unfair. Anyway, let's move on to Nürburgring, where we were a couple of weeks ago for the SRO thing. But I think let's talk about Sim Racing Expo, because I'd like your perspective on this. I don't think too many people have talked about this. I've not been before, but I've seen photos and watched other people's videos. A lot of people seem to have the impression this year that perhaps it didn't quite have the same character to it that it perhaps has in the past.
Yeah,
Go on, I'm putting words in your mouth, but
and the right words. I mean, it looked good from my point of view this year, and I'll caveat everything I'm going to say by the fact that we actually spent very little time, to be fair, in Expo because all other commitments, but it looked more professional than it has done before. So I'm sure you've seen Chris's video. I hope you've seen mine as well, our Instagram video. They've got the nice barriers up around it with all the logos and branding on and all that good stuff. So it kind of like contained it in a nice, neat way in the centre of the exhibition suite, I suppose you'd call it. That looked really good, but it just seemed a lot less packed with different people this time. So
well, it was the stands rather than necessarily the exhibitors, I should say, rather than attendees.
Yeah, that's what I meant when people. Yeah, the exhibitors were in 2017. There seemed to be a whole host. Some you've heard of, some you've not. Everybody had a small amount of square footage because there were a lot going off in a small space. But this year, it seemed like all the exhibitors had quite a bit of real estate, to the point where I think Vasaro had a couple of settees laid out for you to chill seats, Chris. Seats, amazing. And everything, the exhibitors all run a much bigger scale. So our friends over at Wave Italy, they had two of their awesome Formula-style car motion rigs.
The Sims, they're amazing. Yeah.
They were absolutely
But that's the thing, isn't it, Paul? If you wanted to check out motion rigs or the market of motion rigs, Sim Racing Expo was excellent this year.
Yeah.
If you took away all the motion rigs from it, you were left with Fanatec pretty much, and Studio 397, I think.
Well, that's the thing. There was very little developers. I mean, first time I went, there were a lot of devs there. I think Renato Chris were there, but we missed him. We didn't see him.
Okay.
He didn't have an exhibition, but he was visiting. But there were not much dev. Like iRacing were there at a good size stand.
They did,
But
yeah.
I think they've missed a trick in that it's all big money gear. And we said this to Mark Enrique, who runs it in 2017. There's nothing for your mum and dad and kid scenario where the unique thing about Expo is it's based at a racetrack, popular racetrack, and a popular race event. And a lot of the audience, I mean, we saw a lot of faces that we knew. So a lot of the audience are simmers that have come specifically for it. But a good portion of that is people that have come with a family and the youngsters. They've watched some motor racing. They're having a look round, maybe gone for a bite to eat, and they'll stumble into this. And potentially, they're seeing sim racing for the very first time, or they're seeing more detail than they've ever seen about what it's all about. And I'm a bit upset that if you go in there, if I went in there with my son and he was 5 and we'd not seen sim racing before, I'd walk in and go, "Oh, this is amazing! Oh, this is amazing! Oh God, I need €30,000 to get in the door. No, thank you." And then carry on. And it's not that. I've talked about it on loads of different medium before. You can have fun with a €500 setup. And when I say €500, I mean your PC, your wheel, your pedals, your monitor, lot. £500, you can go out, you can get online, your graphics will be low down and your stuff will not be the highest end. But you can go and have a hot race with somebody and have time of your life. Just as much fun as if you've got €50,000 worth of gear and all the full motion stuff. But don't get me wrong, we love it, and I suppose a lot of people watching or listening today will spend some of their or a lot of their disposable income in getting more immersive gear because that's what we do with boys and toys. But you don't have to. And it kind of, the message that the Expo gave for me was this is a high-end, expensive hobby. And that worries me that turns off newcomers because the Gateway, I had a Logitech G25 that cost me £100, I think it were. Gateway drug. I had it for years. It ran faultlessly. I still got it in loft in case I'm in a real pickle and need a wheel. And you get the £100 one because that's what you can afford. And then over time, you upgrade to whatever you upgrade to if you do upgrade. Showing people the £3,000 direct drive wheel and Porsche steering wheel is nice, but dad and son and mum, for example, are going to walk in there and go, whoa, that's not for us, that. Just move swiftly on. And that's missing a trick, I think, a little bit. It's,
there's also alongside that is there wasn't there wasn't really anything for the public to get involved with. I mean, there was stuff going on in the Race Room Cafe, but that's there all the time. But they've upgraded their rigs to like full motion and everything else. No, funny you should mention that. But you're right. There are a limited number of points to entry into sim racing, and I think you've got games like the Codemaster stuff, which provides a great gateway drug. I went to I mentioned earlier, and the audience will know I went to the Grid launch thing on whenever the hell that was, last week, Thursday, in Stratford, which was exciting. That was
Stratford. That's
Stratford.
Very
not Stratford-on-Avon,
very
just
exotic.
Stratford. Yeah,
just Stratford.
I don't mind Stratford. It's not too bad, but the 37-mile journey home took me 4 hours.
Oh man,
the M25. But anyway, I've already complained
than the UK.
Yeah, I know. I've already complained about that on video before, so let's not put my audience through that again. Anyway, just there are limited numbers of points of entry. There's websites like Race Department, which I think if you're searching for sim racing stuff, you're going to stumble across it. And you guys have a pretty balanced approach to what you're covering. Not too much kit stuff. You've got sim racing channels. And you've got people like Jimmy and Gamer Muscle and myself and people like that. We're all racing on high-end hardware, so that's not a great advert. There are obviously channels that are racing on lower-end hardware, but I think you're right.
The is though, Chris, those channels tend to be stuff that people are already aware of the niche and already interested going into. I think that this is like way I describe it is kind of like we're all our own little shop. That we're all in our own little field. So people who know where it is will go in that field to your shop because they like what you're selling. But actually, we need to be a high street where people who've gone for something completely different stumble across sim racing and can be exposed to it. And race department, as you say, massive website, but you're not going to bump into race department. You're going to find it if you're looking for something in that. All the different influencer videos are the same thing. And the Sim Racing Expo is one of the only places, because you can't even compare it to game fairs, because game fairs are still a niche thing for gamers have gone there. Whereas we always say, like, I always believe every sim racer, probably, give or take, is a motorsport fan. And most motorsport fans are potential sim racing fans. So that's like the only crossover place I know of, the Expo, where motorsport fans who don't know what sim racing is, who were me back in the day, PC's not for me, can be exposed to it. And we're turning them off straight away by showing them a €100,000 Formula One car on motion, which is awesome. But no one's going to put that in the pocket and go, I'll have to with that for my son. Lance Stroll's already in Formula One, so he's not interested. And
that was low-hanging fruit, isn't it? That's the problem.
It were, weren't it? Yeah. You give me bullets and don't expect me not to shoot. But yeah, it's a shame. I think it is a shame, but maybe in future.
There's a nice segue there, Paul, into my final topic.
The first segue of the video that's worked
is that another gateway, or a gateway that's emerging between motorsports and sim racing, is esports. Obviously, we have been involved in that in quite a direct way this year. And one of the things we keep coming back to is that sim racers don't seem massively excited about esports yet. And yeah, there's some work that I think we as an industry need to do, and people like Paul and myself need to do as, oh god, I'm going to use the term again, journalists in this medium. I can't call us that. Sorry, Paul. I mean, it's technically true, but I just can't. I don't want to feel like I'm getting too big for my boots.
We can't be journalists because we've got morals and scruples.
That was not where I was going with that. But
so we can't possibly be. I can still look at myself in the mirror and feel happy. So I'm not a journalist.
Oh well, we were coming at that from very different angles, Paul. Anyway, so yeah, esports, particularly in sim racing, is still in its infancy. So to round this out with a bit of nice blue sky thinking, what would you like to see change about racing esports between now, when it's taking its little nascent first steps into the world, and till 10 years time or 20 years time or whatever, and we're all thinking, oh god, this is a juggernaut, we're why have we done this?
Dude, that's like a really big question to give me with no pre-warning. I think for me, I'm going to start with a flaw, but then turn it into a positive. I think the fundamental flaw with esport at the moment might explain why people are taking a while to tune in, I'm not sure, is it's geared towards the aliens, the absolute top class drivers. Now, they're either top class because they've got natural talent. Obviously, everybody's got natural talent to be that level, of course. They've got capacity to dedicate time and energy into practicing. And at the moment, because esport feels like it's professionalizing a little bit more now, or starting that journey, then we're getting like professional esport drivers that are being paid to do this. So obviously their time is then becoming even larger amounts of time to practice, which is bringing the differential between the pros that are doing it for a living and really getting in seat time, compared to the people that are naturally talented but are doing it in an evening after they've fitting it in between work and family. That's getting larger. So we're getting even more focused on the real high level stuff. So the likes of you and I, although I'm casting no aspersions on your ability to drive quickly, the likes of you and I are probably not going to enter a lot of these esport competitions, because I know full well I'm not going to be in the top percentile because I haven't got the time or the skill or the dedication for it. And I don't know whether, and I can't speak for the esport viewing audience, I don't know whether that's a turn on or a turn off for them. Are they watching it because, hey, these are people with a skill level I'll never ascertain and that's impressive? Or they're not engaging with it because they think, well, yeah, I can't get involved in this. And esport's one of those, not like Formula One where you you can't go buy a Formula One car, but you can participate in esports at a wide variety of entry points, cost-wise. So I'd like to see esports evolve into, there is a place for the legends and the aliens, but I'd like to see a place for the everyman as well. I'd like to see slightly more, or every woman or every whatever. I'd like to see more engaging to a broader spectrum of people, and both from a televised or streamed or whatever casted perspective, and also from a participation perspective as well, even if it doesn't get a shop window that we get in the SRO series or the world's fastest gamer or whatever the NASCAR Heat 4 esports series has been. It's, yeah, I just think opening it up to a wider audience I would like to see. And from in terms of what I'd like it to be in 10 years' time, I'd like to see more channeling of getting people to drive like Kevin Frenchek does. Sensible, taking away putting some more jeopardy into it. So I'd like Steve, who's with us on the SRO series, has spoken about this times many, but I'd like to see 100% one-for-one realism in damage. So a light piece of contact will have a consequence that takes you out of a race, which means some of the driving quality will improve, because at the moment you can dive bomb, and depending on your sim and your luck, the netcode might save you, and you'll dive bomb the other car, pings off the track, and you're okay. Or you can hit a wall at high speed, and even with higher damage levels in most sims, you can probably still limp back to the pits or even drive on unhindered. And I think if you had a smallest amount of contact means boop, game over, people would drive differently. And I think the quality of the racing would improve because more respect would be fostered through each driver, throughout the levels. We get it at the pros anyway, they've got that respect. But across the board in sim racing and lower level esports stuff, I don't think that exists. And that kind of becomes a frustration if you've put in 3,000 kilometers testing and then you get took out. Where crashes happen in motorsport when you have to get took out because somebody's just not being respectful enough and they're living in the virtual world and doing something stupid. It's quite difficult to tolerate as a competitor.
That's a very comprehensive answer, given that I put you on the spot. I completely agree. Interestingly, I had a message from James Parker today, who took part in the Nürburgring round, and if you remember, he got hit multiple times by the same guy who was still waiting to serve a drive-through penalty. And it was messy and upsetting and annoying to see at a professional level. And James is a guy who was an AM driver. He literally qualified through the online system, turned up there having never done an esports event, acquitted himself absolutely brilliantly in both races, narrowly missed out in that second race, almost certainly because of those contacts. And you have to feel for the guy. The reason he reached out was because I'm going to try and get him to come here, and we had some great conversations about like setting up cars in Assetto Corsa Competizione and getting the most out of them. And I think I'd like to do a video with him and get his perspective on it. So hopefully we're going to get that sorted out in the next few weeks. That's a conversation I've got to have when we finish this recording. So I thought I'd introduce the audience. It's nice to softly introduce these ideas to the audience. So by the time they come around, they're just like, well, this is a good idea. Yeah.
Plant the seed. Yeah. Plant the seed.
Paul, one thing I would like to talk is going off the thing. The final thing I'd like to talk about, the actual final thing, not the last final thing, which was a lie as it turned out. I'd like to talk about just RD a little bit, because there's a few things I've learned from spending time with you and Bram and Steve and Ricardo and everyone else this year. I don't mean about you all as human beings. I think I won't share any of that. But I think, despite being a pretty heavy user of RD for years and having known about it for years before that, I wasn't really aware about the scale of Race Department. If you go and look on the front page at the moment, you guys have got about 950,000 subscribers. There's 950,000 people have signed up for an account on Race Department. That's mental for sim racing. I mean, that's completely nuts. Bram, I can't remember if it was you or Bram were telling me that you got 3 or 4 million unique users a month. That's 3 or 4 million unique different people. Yeah. Quality sentence, Chris. That's
nice.
It's
good English.
It's wordage like that is the reason what they got you to do the commentary thing on the races on the internet that you've been doing this annual year, Chris. Yeah, quality.
Nice play.
Anyway, yeah, so 3 or 4 million unique users each month. God knows how many people that don't sign up for an account. According to your Alexa rank, you're one of the biggest motorsport websites in Europe. How the hell is sim racing so big? Or how the hell are there so many people that are interested in sim racing? Where are they all?
I honestly think it's just a human nature. You get the noisy. There we go.
It's been quite a long recording session, Paul.
Seriously, I've come straight from work. I've got changed. I've come up here. I've had a cup of tea. I'm so needing a dinner. I've not eaten since I've not eaten. What time is it? Ooh, I've not eaten for 12 hours. The people that are most vocal are the people that've got an axe to grind or something they're upset about, something they want to vocalize their discontent about. But the happy people, the people that are like myself, who really are more than happy with where sim racing is and are more than grateful for the good stuff, are too busy driving. Yeah. So they don't engage in the community stuff. They don't watch the YouTube videos. They don't comment on the articles because they're doing exactly what it is that we're talking about. And that's human nature. I use this at work a lot. If you come to some traffic lights at a busy junction and they go green and you set off and all cars are stopped and you drive through, you don't turn around and clap the traffic lights for a job well done. You just accept it. But if you come and it turns green at the wrong time and you get hit, you'll be effing and blinding and gesticulating and telling all the world how garbage these traffic lights are. And a hobby like ours is very much the same, that people who are happy will love it. I mean, for example, to keep it on topic of the SRO series, I've played ACC since it first came publicly available. I am lucky. I have not had a tenth of the problems that people are reporting.
No,
I find it
same.
works as it should. We've talked about this many a time, haven't we, over a beer or a soft drink in various European places. It's worked great. So for me, I think it's an epic game, epic sim. Love it. But then I see all these people coming on and you see pages and pages of comments of this don't work, that's broken, this is iffy, that's weird. But you don't see, for every 200 people that have got this issue, you don't see the 15,000 people that went, turned it on, it were buzzing, had a great good time, came off it, happy as Larry. Human nature, man. That's just people are busy doing what they're doing and maybe not engaging so much in the various different mediums that we've got around our wonderful, wonderful hobby.
That's true. I honestly just wanted to put that out there at the end because I don't think I've said in any videos as much, but RD is huge. And it's an absolute privilege for me to be involved with, maybe I could rephrase that. I was going to say involved with you guys, but that's probably, but I'm glad.
We've shared a bed though, Chris. We've shared a bed.
Yeah. It's one of the real highlights of the year, Paul. Anyway, I think on that note, we should bring things to a close here, Paul. Stay on the. We'll sign off. We'll say goodbye to the viewers, but stay on the call quickly, just so we can say goodbye on our own special way. Thank you, everyone, for watching. I hope you've stuck with us through what's been quite a long and meandering journey. It's been a pleasure talking to you, Paul. Thank you very much for joining me, man.
Cheers, mate. Really appreciate it, and keep up the good work. I'm enjoying Chris Haye Sim Racing, and hello to everybody out there. So thanks for having me, dude. Cheers.
All right, thanks everyone for watching, and I guess all that's left to say is goodbye. Thanks for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.